I'm going to mute everybody as they are jumping on. Quick note to our panelists, as you start talking, make sure that you are unmuted, and we will get started. So the panelists that we have on today, I'm very, very excited. Some of them, it's their very first debut on the branch ImPACT calls. For others, you've seen them before. So right now, we have Everett Burns. Everett Burns is from the Northeast region. Last summer, he ran the Easton branch. His branch finished 5th overall with a sales total of $178,000, and his PPR was 4,500. Now, what PPR typically shows is that they have a very effective training, they have very effective fast start productivity, and they're just effective managers. So one of the reasons why Everett was chosen to lead this call today is because of the fact that he has experience running a very powerful training, and he's been able to actually have quite a few people stick around to be part of Leadership Academy this fall and into the spring as well. Next, we have Nathan Alvarado out of the Midwest region. Nathan ran the North Kentucky branch office. He finished 10th overall with a sales report of $154,616. And again, similar to Everett, with a PPR of $4,500. And I'm really excited to hear Nathan's story, because you'll hear in some of his questions that I ask him that he actually had a pretty crazy first training class. And if he can make it through his first training and have a summer like he did, anybody can do this. And then finally, we have Miss Reanna Raymond from the Midwest region as well, ran the Waterford branch office, finished number 27 in the nation with a sales total of $113,000. And just like Nathan and Everett, had a very high PPR of $4,000. And I remember walking into her office this past summer to do a visit and just feeling the energy and the excitement that she had for her people when thinking about who could run an effective call on training dynamics. I thought Reanna Raymond has such a great energy about her that she will absolutely bring the goods and really just, share with a lot of you about confidence and enthusiasm and excitement when running an effective training. So before I dive into the questions here, I just want to, share with all of you some of the reasons why this particular call is important. So we're not going to talk too much about the logistics of training. We're not going to talk about all the talks and training. That's really part of your TLA agenda. That's part of what your DVM teaches you. And we know that every division has a slightly different training, whether it's 2-day or 3-day. However, there are some underlying components of training that are really, really important across the board. Things like energy and enthusiasm and confidence, and how you show up and how you present yourself, and what you do on your breaks when your people are eating some pizza, and how do you act during those breaks, and how do you set the standards for PDI, and how do you uphold those standards as soon as training gets launched, and things like that. So for this call, you're going to be learning some of those tidbits that are really important with training, and everything else regarding training, from the framework and the structure of the talks. Those are things you're going to learn from your DVM, but today you're going to hear some gold nuggets from these former branch managers, all of which are going to be senior branch managers this upcoming summer. So they're going to be not only leaders on today's call, but they're going to be leaders in the field this summer. So make sure you take a lot of notes. Just like in previous calls, if you hear something that you think is a nugget, please utilize the chat feature and write in nugget, just like I did right now. And if you have any questions throughout the call, there will be a live Q&A at the end of this call. But if you have a burning question that you absolutely just need to get out, you can post it in the group, and we'll get back to that during the live Q&A. If there is any quote that you hear from any of the branch managers that really sticks with you and you want to type it out and put it in the group chat, that's totally fine as well. If there's something that you agree on, you can comment in the group chat. It just keeps everybody engaged, and it keeps the conversation flowing. So with that being said, I want to dive in here with the very first question. And the very first question is actually going towards Nathan Alvarado. Again, he was our branch manager from the North Kentucky office in the Midwest region. So Nathan, in your opinion, what is the main objective of training?
Yeah, so this is something that my division manager, Chad, always talked about. But the three main goals that our philosophy is in our division is, as long as they have demos, confidence, and they follow the manual, they're going to be very successful with us. And just to elaborate a little bit on each of those points, confidence just basically means they're feeling good and they feel like they're excited to go out and do their first few demos for the weekend. Having demos, usually our ideal number is having 7 to 8 per person leaving training. And that's obviously set up through, the phone jam. And then following the manual, that's basically the objective of all of training, is just to make sure that they're following that and that they understand if they follow that, they're going to do fine. And just not over complicating it too much. A lot of times, like as managers, we can get overwhelmed with how much we have going on in training. But if we just stick to those 3 main basics, that's the whole point of all of the things we're doing in training. So just going back to the basics.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's a great answer, Nathan. And something I want to piggyback off of that, and you're going to hear this from the other branches with their answers. Nathan mentioned confidence, making sure that these reps have confidence going into their first couple of demos post-training. So you're going to hear from Everett and Reanna, and probably Nathan as well, what it means for them to have confidence as a trainer. And oftentimes with your reps, they might be slightly nervous. And so it's important as the trainer to have a lot of confidence that your reps, even if they are not confident in themselves, they can kind of borrow the confidence that you have and use that to get them through their first couple of demos. You're going to hear a little bit more about that as we move forward in this call. But the next question is actually a question for all 3 of the panelists. Everett, I'm going to have you start. Rihanna, I'm going to have you go next. And then Nathan, you'll end the question. But what are the main components that are important to remember while running a powerful training seminar?
For me, always making sure I talk to every rep on every role play, get over, kneel down next to him, listen to him, give him a high five, make him feel good every role play. Also, it's important, like during the breaks, to make sure you're establishing a connection with them beyond just selling knives. It's not exciting to talk about that during breaks. They want to talk about themselves. So take the opportunity to get to know reps on the breaks. And I would also say that another thing I like to do is make sure I say every rep's name in training 5 times each day. That way, every rep is just remember as hearing their name over and over again. They know that you know who they are. They don't just feel like a number. Yeah,
that's a really good point too. And Everett, I love how you say every rep, every role play. And we're going to get into that in another question about, what does it mean to work the breaks? But I think a lot of what Everett just said is how he really focuses on getting to know his people and making sure that each individual rep feels like they are being recognized and that they are being paid attention to. Because if you remember back when you were a brand new rep, if you were sitting in a training class of 10, 15 people, it could be easy to feel like you're kind of getting lost in the sauce. And what Everett just described was really making a system to break through that. And his system is every rep, every role play. So during the role play times, he's going around to every single person, saying every person's name 5 times. The sweetest sound is the sound of your own name. And then, of course, just establishing that connection. So, Everett, great answer. Rianna, what would you say is the main component to running a powerful training?
So just establishing a really great connection with every person just from the very beginning. Kind of awkward if you don't know anything about them mid training still. So just that first hour, just really get to know them in the first part of training, really get to know what they're going for in school. So and relating their sales skills and how vector marketing and Cutco is going to help them in the future. Because the main point is if they don't feel like they belong there, if they don't feel like this job's going to help them in any way, then they're not going to come to day 2. And our goal is to launch them, obviously. So if they're going to be they're going to be in nursing school, if they're going to be a photographer one day, it's relating how everyone needs sales skills. So providing them hey, if you're going to be a doctor, don't you think people are going to need to trust you? You're going to have to build rapport with them. They're going to have to believe in what the service you're offering them, and you have to sell yourself to them. So just relating it to different people and using their name to do it. And one thing I'd also like to add to that is just keeping it simple. We know a lot of information as sales reps, and we think that the more we throw at them, the more they're going to sell, but I think it hurts your PPR. So I say just teach them the basics and hold off all the advanced stuff for things like key staff, advanced training. Just when they come to the office, teach them something cool in team meeting, because they are going to do a lot better. They're going to keep wanting to come to the office even throughout after training to learn that information. And they're going to have a way better first weekend just knowing the bare basics and not feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. It's kind of the reason why the first two questions that we're starting with here have to do with objectives and components of training. Because, if we were to start this call out with all of the, specific innuendos or the specific postures and all the different things that, you need to remember, it could be a little overwhelming. But if we just focus on the pure basics of what is training meant to do. And it's the exact same thing for a rep. What is the demo meant to do, and not overcomplicating things. I loved what you said about that. And it's absolutely a trap that a lot of branches fall into, where they just want to give all of their knowledge to all of their people. And if you are an innovator, if they're talking about the core values index test, if you are an innovator, you have to absolutely fight this urge to want to give your people everything. Remember that when you were a brand new rep, you started with the exact same training manual. And you started out doing the exact same thing, and it got you to where you are. So you don't need to just dump all the knowledge on these people. You just need to walk them through the training just as you were taught, and make them feel special and make them realize why this role is going to help them in their future, no matter what their major is or what their interests are. So again, I love that answer, Reanna. Nathan, what about you?
Yeah, so I think that, making sure a rep feels good is super, super important. And a big part of that is making sure that you as a manager are nailing all the important talks that you need to in training. So I know people have different, training talks, different days of training. We run a 3-day training, and we have 2 big talks every day. So the first one is just the intro talk, your personal story, just like introducing everyone to training. The next one's like helping them build a big names list. The next one after that is like competitive cutlery / like value in Cutco. And then the one after that is best customers. So teaching what MAC customers are, who our best customers are, who they should show. And then day 3 is basically the PR talk, which is the most important one. And then also expectations, to make sure they're leaving training with the right expectations and to make sure that they're going to be successful. And a big part of training is making sure that you as a manager, are practicing those talks before summer starts. So that way when you hit summer, people aren't worried about you being unconfident or you not knowing what you're talking about. You've practiced them, you understand what the talks are for. And if you bring that into training, they're going to be really successful, but they're also going to have a lot of confidence in what you're saying, and they're going to trust you throughout training.
Yeah, absolutely. So like Nathan said, every division has a different style of training, whether it's 2-day or 3-day, and some of them might have their talks kind of switched around, but make sure that you understand from your DVM what are the most important messages, and take the time to script them out and practice them. Just because you might not be close to your nearest office does not mean that you can't practice training. And so I think about, I've heard so many stories of vector greats who practice their training in front of like teddy bears in their college dorm. Now that might feel funny and it might sound funny, but just getting that repetition down of those talks is really valuable. And you don't have to overwhelm yourself by doing it all at once. You can slice it up 1 week at a time, covering each and every talk. You've got the time right now to do it, so utilize that time. Another thing that's really important that Nathan said is, understanding the whys behind each message. It's easy when you are a branch manager to go on autopilot and to just repeat the script over and over and over again. However, when you know the whys behind the script, it does allow you to have a little bit more enthusiasm behind it, because you understand specifically what that script does for not only the rep, but you as their manager. You understand that the PR talk needs to have high energy because it's fueling your office. You understand that the competitive cutlery talk and the value building talk is really helpful in allowing the rep to realize that everybody can afford Cutco, which will ultimately drive up their average order, which will ultimately lead to a higher PPR, which means more sales for your office. So taking the time to understand the why will just give you more confidence and more enthusiasm over each and every talk. All right, Reanna, this question specifically for you. So as I mentioned when I first introduced Reanna, when I walked into her office last summer, I could just tell that her energy and her enthusiasm for the role was so high, and that her team really respected the crap out of her and really just honored her as their manager and just genuinely loved the role. And so, Reanna, my question is for you. How did you keep your energy high during training?
Okay, so during training, obviously, like, it's a long day for everybody. So just, I feel like in the interview, you should be very, very professional, smile occasionally. But when you get to training, that's when you can kind of loosen up a little bit. And there is a fine line between being like their friend and their manager, so make sure you don't cross it. You'll definitely find that out very early in the summer, where that line is and what you need to do it. So, or to find it. But like, basically you want to be professional, but you want to be yourself still. So you want to be the professional version of yourself, just like we tell our reps to be in training. And I think, I don't know if you guys have one or 2 or 3 day trainings, but I'm a 2-day training, and I do my food cutting on day 1. So I just like to let them use the product to get up, to move around, to eat the food that we cut, and to have a lot of fun. And I think that just like, if they are getting tired or like just getting a little too relaxed after a couple hours, then just do something like, cut food and do it right before a phone jam. Just get their energy high and have their conviction really high in the product too, because everyone loves cutting food. And then just joking around a little bit, just like put jokes, like have funny pictures in your slides that just wake them up and get their attention, that you could laugh about. Just making sure you have a lot of fun. And that just comes throughout your personality. So if you feel like you're not being yourself, then just, that's probably like they're not going to have fun either. They can definitely see through that. And having like high energy music. And I just ask myself, and this is something I want you guys to ask yourself, for like every time that you want your reps to come to the office, whether it's for training, team meetings, advanced training, key staff, stuff like that, ask yourself, like, if this was my manager and they were doing this, would I have fun showing up to this? So like, if you're not having fun running it, then your reps aren't having fun doing it. And if you're not having fun thinking about showing up to the office as a rep doing it, then you have to think from their perspective. And so just like, we have the harder job than representatives do. So if you got to make it fun for yourself, and then they're automatically going to have twice as much as fun than you are. So it's going to be awesome.
Thank you. That's a great answer too. I want to just acknowledge some of the things that Reanna said that were really important. And the first one is one that I think every senior branch can look back on and realize that they probably could have done a better job with, is just being yourself. Don't be afraid to be exactly who you are, because the reality of the situation is, and I actually had this conversation with another senior branch today during a coaching call, the reality of the situation is that when somebody is walking into your office for an interview, they automatically already assume that you are in a respected role. So you don't have to try to be someone you're not to gain their respect. You already have it by being the manager yourself. So realizing that you don't have to be some 35-year-old version of Brian Hurlman or Jake Doherty or Brett Wiggins or John Wasserman, whichever division you're in, you don't have to try to be someone you're not to gain respect. And I think that's something I hear a lot of when I'm talking to branch managers, is that they're so afraid that because they are young, or that they look young, or that they're a college student, that people aren't going to respect them. They don't know that you are a college student, first off. So you automatically have their respect from the beginning. Now, of course, there are certain ways to lose the respect, and that's by being really unprofessional. But as Reanna said, be the professional version of yourself. You can still be yourself, but you know the line between professional and not professional. The things that you do with your girlfriends or your guys on weekends doesn't need to be brought into the office. But you can still have fun and throw jokes in there and tell great stories and connect with people on an individual basis without being unprofessional or appearing young. So I hope that makes sense to everybody. And this is a conversation that if you really feel like you're nervous about this, I'm happy to have a side conversation with you about this. But, Reanna, I think, was one of the youngest branch managers that we had in the Midwest. And she was able to run an amazing team. And her team respected her because she showed up as the most professional version of herself. Now, Reanna, how did you set the proper expectations from the start? And just if you can touch a little bit on how you did gain the respect from your training class, that'd be great.
Yeah, okay. So I I feel like you have to have you have to set the expectations from the very beginning of training. So not just assuming they know how it's going to go, but telling them how this is our office standard. Like, this is how training will go. This is how your time throughout vector and Cutco will go. So like literally having that on a slide, or maybe even like in a poster on the wall, but nothing too scary or too strict, just something that's simple. I had two things I wrote down for this. So one is just like dress professionally. I know Shelby originally asked me something about like being respected as a younger female and stuff. And this goes for like male and female, but especially like being a girl, I was worried about like people not respecting me because I'm young and I am a woman and stuff. But just like making sure that you're dressing professionally, like it's kind of like a weird topic, but just making sure like nothing's too short, too tight, or anything like that, because that's the first thing people are going to look at. Unfortunately, it's just appearances, just like we look at other people like reps and think about their appearances. Number two, for demanding respect, would definitely be ask yourself, like, what are you tolerating? So when I have people come in, I'm going to have fun, I'm going to joke around, I'm going to like be relaxed, but I'm also going to stay like obviously professional and teach them training. But if I let people walk all over me, which being younger, they think that they can do, that's when people will lose respect for you. So you just imagine like people come in, they already have respect for you. You're their manager. You have to believe it. And then the only way you can lose respect is by letting people disrespect you. So people are coming in late and you don't say anything about it, other people are going to come in late too. If people are talking while you're teaching and you just let it go, then people are going to continue to do that. So it's just demanding respect when you ask for it, and being all friendly when you can. So I told Shelby this, but just tell your reps there's a time to play around and be fun and friendly and stuff, and there's also time to like get some work done, because at the end of the day, you want to tell your reps that like their most important point of having training and of this office is that you're dedicated to their success.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a lot of ways to set up certain events like team meetings, key staff meetings, trainings, where you have specific time for work and you have specific time for play. And that's really what the idea of a team night out is meant to do, is meant to give people that time for play after they've worked hard. There's that saying, work hard, play hard. There's a reason why it's not play hard, work hard. So making sure that your people know, hey guys, listen, like if you're starting off a team meeting, we've got a lot of things to get through tonight. Really excited about the agenda. We're going to end the meeting with an amazing phone gym, and then we're going to go out and we're going to go bowling. And it's going to be a lot of fun. So I know that you have a lot of energy right now, and I want to use all of your energy towards, action and doing things that are going to produce demos for you so you can make more money. And then we're going to take the leftover energy and bring it to bowling, and we're going to have a great time. So there are certain ways that you can set things up so that you can manage their expectations of when work is happening and when fun is happening. Another thing that Reanna said that was an absolute nugget that I wrote in here, and so did Everett, is be aware of what you're tolerating. So now is the time to figure out, what are your boundaries? What do you tolerate? And, if you're a female, this is especially important, I think, for you, because I find it more often that females are the ones that are nervous about the lack of respect, realizing what is okay to be said to you and what is not okay to be said to you. And the minute that whatever is not okay is said, you nip it in the bud right away. And I'll tell you a quick story, and then we're going to go over to Everett. I had a former branch manager last summer at the summer kickoff conference, I'm not going to say which division, come up to me in front of other branch managers and tell me that I looked hot. And at first, I was really, really just stunned that someone would say that to me. A, they know I'm in a long-term relationship. B, it's just really inappropriate. And C, it was in front of other people. And I at first did not know how to react. So if I don't know how to react, I'm sure that if you were in this situation, you'd be like, what do I do? And so after I collected my thoughts, I went up to him in private and I said, listen, that was incredibly inappropriate. I appreciate the fact that you think I look nice, but there are ways to say that are not so derogatory or offensive. Second thing is, never say something like that in front of other people, because it puts me in a very awkward position, because I have to quickly think how I'm going to react. And if those other people see me not react in the best way, then they're going to think it's okay for them to say those kinds of things. So in the future, if you want to compliment how I'm dressed, you can say, Shelby, you look really nice today. I like your outfit. And so I followed up with the reprimand. I gave him a special tip of how in the future, if he wanted to compliment me, there's a professional way of doing it. And that is a life skill that I hope he's taken on for the rest of his life. So I hope that helps some of the ladies here understand how to have those kinds of conversations. All right, that was a little bit of a tangent, but Everett, I want to go to you now. So Everett, thinking back to your training, what did you do to keep your own energy high? So Reanna talks about how to bring the energy in the training, but what about your specific energy? How did you keep it high throughout the entire training seminar?
Really simple is drinking enough water, being hydrated, eating enough food, and being aware of what you're putting in your body. Specifically on days I was running training, I made sure that the breakfast I was eating was good, and it was a big breakfast that was going to hold me over, and I wouldn't have to you don't want to be the one who feels like you need to go up first for pizza on day 2 of training. We all know not to do that, and we don't do it anyway, but that's the kind of things you want to avoid that keep your energy up. And then another thing I would say is make sure that you have a lot of your back end stuff that might come up during training just taken care of before, because there's nothing that drains your energy more than having to extinguish fires for things that you could have taken care of in the morning before training started.
Yeah, that's a great question. Everett, would you recommend any certain kinds of foods to have stacked around your office so that you aren't the first one going to the pizza box?
I think it's important to have like really simple stuff, granola bars, and I ate a lot of cereal in my office, and I would also say like having a lot of fresh fruit. Like it might seem annoying, but sell just a little bit more this spring so you can buy yourself a mini fridge and, keep real food in your office.
Yeah, for sure. And I know a lot of you at college, you probably have a mini fridge or your roommate has a mini fridge that they're not going to use this summer. Ask if you can borrow it. Make sure you have a mini fridge and a microwave in your office. And this will allow you to keep frozen items like lean cuisines or that's just one example, but like Hot Pockets or Chef Boyardee's or soup cans or whatever it might be. But another really good food item to keep in your office would be almonds. Almonds are a really quick way to keep your energy high, and they do help with hunger as well. I used to keep clementines in my office because they were a great source of like natural energy from the sugar. Don't overeat them because it will, that is too much sugar, but it's nice and refreshing to pop a quick clementine in your mouth after you've been talking all day. So just think about those things. And then of course, like Everett said, water is so incredibly important. I actually asked this question to Nathan before. Nathan, I want to ask you the same question. So what did you do to keep your energy high throughout training?
Yeah, so for me, it was definitely getting the right amount of sleep. But for me, I was someone who about mid-July ran out of a lot of energy. And it was just because I wasn't eating the right things. So I really wanted to emphasize, what they were all saying about eating right, because it was something that I did not do. And mid-July, I was absolutely dead and was like, oh my gosh, I love this, but I'm dead inside. So just getting the right foods in your body that if you can basically drive through, you probably shouldn't put it in your body. Drinking a lot of water is super important, and getting the right sleep. That was something that I had nailed, but I know a lot of my friends and other managers did not do. So just getting those things down is really important. And then also just having a lot of people in the room is naturally going to build your energy too. Making sure you recruit throughout the week and all those things. Like we talk about recruiting all the time, but if you have 10 people in the room, you're naturally going to have way more energy than if you have 1 or 2. So just naturally recruiting hard and putting in the effort all week is going to give you the energy that you want to give your people.
Yeah, that's the point that I was waiting for. When Nathan said that in our pre-call, I was like, yes, that's exactly true. And guys, you can run the best training in the world, but if you have nobody to run it for, then what does it matter? So recruiting is always the answer. This isn't a recruiting call, but I wanted Nathan to just mention that because it is very, very true. The more people you have in front of you, naturally, the more excited you are going to be. So making sure that you fill your room to the brims, because I can't tell you how you will lose sleep over or not lose sleep, but you will not be able to fall asleep when you have a training class where there's like 55 people set. You'll be like it's Christmas Eve or like the night before your birthday. Like you're just so excited to see who shows up. So making sure that you do fill your room to the brim. Another quick tip on sleep that, I love that Nathan said that because it's really important too. Over the summer, I really encourage you to get yourself a real alarm clock. Set your real alarm clock and leave your phone out of your bedroom. You are on your phone enough during the day, from PDI to Facebook Jumpstart to checking in with your friends to managing your reps, all of those things. You're on it enough. The last thing you want is to be continuously on it, keeping yourself up at night. So buy yourself a real alarm clock. They still make those. Plug your phone in outside of your bedroom and learn how to fall asleep without looking at your phone and scrolling endlessly through Instagram. I do it. I'm still learning how to figure that out, that I won't do it, but it will seriously help you when it comes to getting proper sleep in preparation for your summer. All right, next question here. And this is for all of you. So Everett, I want you to go first, then Reanna, then Nathan. What does it mean when you hear the phrase, work the breaks?
Work the breaks means that when we take a break during training, it's for the reps. It's not for us. That's when you like really go to work. Like you want to make sure you're talking to your reps during the breaks so that they know that the break is not you just not caring about whatever they're doing. You want to be involved in those conversations. You want to be a facilitator of the energy too and make sure that doesn't get drained from the room. And then I always like to talk to them about what they're looking for in terms of being with Vector, but in like a very light way. So that way, you don't have people who are kind of intimidated by the fact that you're curious about what they want there. They're actually excited to share with you.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. One thing about that point, when Everett says, talking to your people, don't just stand behind your desk and shout at them. Actually go over and have a conversation with them. If someone is standing up, great. Stand across from them, have a conversation. If someone is sitting down, either pull a chair over or kneel down so that you are at eye level. You don't want to be talking down to someone when you're trying to build a relationship because it automatically just throws the balance off. So thanks for sharing that. Reanna, what does it mean when you say work the breaks?
So for me, basically it's similar. So just getting to talk to other people, but also letting them talk to each other so that way you can start building a culture right then and there. If they know each other's names, they can get to know each other. Sometimes it's just catching up by eating. It's on a lunch break. They're eating their food, getting their energy back up, drinking water, playing on their phone. But while they're doing all that, making sure that I'm mentally preparing for my next talk. So a lot of times I'll have a break right before my fast start talk. So that way I have a time to get my PR name collection ready, get all my stuff out. Obviously not right in front of their face, but just having music on and doing that. So basically using the break, not only for them to get a break, but for me to mentally prepare to get a better outcome for that PR name collection or that fast start talk and stuff.
Yeah, and Reanna, you also mentioned on our pre-call that you never leave the room, right?
Oh, yes. Don't leave the room.
Why is that?
So I don't until I get a good vibe and everyone has had their first weekend out in sales and they truly believe in the job. I obviously don't want to leave the room because then you never know what one bad apple is going to do to the whole bunch. And that could definitely destroy your whole 6-hour training that you just ran. So making sure that you're in the room, you're hearing what they're saying, you're helping guide conversation if no one's talking to each other. But yeah, for that reason. Same thing with the interview, when you don't want to leave applicants alone together.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Nathan, what about you?
Yeah, so building relationships is really important. I really like to do that too through building confidence in them for their success right off the bat. So having them think about who they're going to show, who they're excited to show, if they're in the middle of role playing, just talking to them hey man, who are you excited to show this weekend? Who you think's going to buy from you? And they're oh, grandma or whatever. And you're awesome, man. Yeah, dude, is she married? She met a customer? And it's yeah. Awesome, man. She's going to be a sale. I'm super excited to hear about that. And just talking with just building confidence, seeing the sale for them before they go on the demo. Sometimes you have to, like Reanna said, just have confidence in them before they go. And that's really how you got to be during the breaks is building relationships, but also just, making sure that you see their success before they do sometimes. Because that was my top rep this summer. He sold 30 grand, had a really bad stuttering problem. And he was just like, I don't know, man. And just was super doubtful of himself. And he knew he had confidence in his customers, but he was doubtful of himself. And sometimes you just have to have that confidence in them before they see it themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Going back to what I had stated in the beginning, just the power of having confidence when you are running training, because there's going to be many, many, many reps that need to borrow that confidence when they're going out for their first weekend. And I think back to, Nathan mentioned a kid that had a stuttering problem. That's absolutely probably really scary for him to go out and all of a sudden meet all these people when he has issues speaking. And so Nathan pouring confidence into him, not only is that just an amazing job by Nathan, but it's just showing this rep that his manager really cares enough to take the time and say, you're going to do this. You're going to do well. It's no wonder that he's stuck around long enough to sell 30 grand. So that's a really, really, really good point. All right, we've got 2 final questions here before we move into the Q&A. But I just want to do a quick recap of just some of the basic themes that we've heard from our panelists today. And a lot of it has to do with communicating with your reps and building that initial relationship, showing up with confidence so that they have confidence in themselves by seeing the confidence that you have in yourself. Also, understanding what are your boundaries and how do you set those boundaries and set those expectations and standards right from the start. And just realizing that, the training is designed to make the rep feel comfortable, get them excited about the role, to have demos, and to go out with confidence. And all of that stems from you and how you show up in the training. So obviously there's a lot that happens after training. And, one of those big components that happen after training is that first weekend PDI. And you're going to learn a lot about this with your DVM during TLA, but I just wanted to give all of the panelists an opportunity to share, how did they hit home the power of PDI with their people, because a 4K PPR means that their people are calling into them and allowing them to influence them. So, starting with Everett, then Reanna, then Nathan, how did you hit home the importance of PDI?
For me, with my reps, I always use PDI as an emphasis of trust. I need to be able to trust you, and the more you build that trust in the beginning, the easier it'll be to have you be an independent rep and me never worry about if you're telling the truth or if you're a person of your word, because as long as we establish that relationship right from the beginning, I'll never question the integrity of you as a worker. And people get that because they know that when they break their word once, it means less immediately. So if you just tell them right from the beginning, hey, PDI is about you keeping your word to what we agreed upon with how presentations work, to confirm that you did the presentation, you call in after PDI to let me know, and we can talk about it and those kind of things. So I just use it to reinforce the trust a lot.
Cool. Reanna, what about
you? So just to make sure that they were calling in at first, I always say slides, but again, have a slide for this. People need to have something tangible they can see to understand, whoa, you get a whole slide for this. Let's talk about it. This is a whole teaching topic. So PDI, just explaining the importance of it. So what I do to explain how important PDI is so people really understand is I give a lot of stories. So one of my stories is just hey, I'm going to use Nathan, for example. So Nathan Alvarado, he started our office. And his first weekend on the job, he sold over $2,000 and completed 8 appointments, and he made X amount of money for the weekend. And then someone who is not doing so great, but I wouldn't obviously use their name and stuff like that. So using those examples, and I would ask them, so what do you guys think the biggest difference is? I mean, they have the same training, same trainer, same training manual, same kit, same product and all that stuff. So what do you think the biggest difference is? And then they're all well, they actually probably don't know. So then I tell them it's PDI. It's because Nathan is someone who called me before and after every single demo where this person didn't. And do you see how when I helped them and they called in for help, I was able to coach them on something and fix their problem in the first demo to go into the second demo, and they weren't repeating their mistake. And I always tell them, you guys can blow up my phone. You guys can call me 4,000 times a day. I won't matter. I'll actually only be mad if you don't call. So saying stuff like that, and then they understand. And I think some managers, like, if they don't hear from them, they just assume they're done with the job. Just making sure that if they don't call in, like, you call them, because that can save somebody from either, like, quitting their first weekend or staying there the first weekend and understanding, oh, like, that's what you meant. This is how we do it, because some people take a little extra help and work.
Yeah. It's important to also realize here, guys, that if they don't call you, you're not bothering them by calling them. You are upholding the standard that you set in training. So this is something that I see a lot of when working with new branch managers, that they are just afraid to bother their reps by either calling them for PDI or asking them for help, when in reality, you are their manager. They know no different than that. So because of that, you said PDI is important. You uphold that standard of PDI. So if they don't call in, you call them. But Reanna also told me in the pre-call a really good idea that I thought,
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, share it.
So basically something that my manager tells us to do, you just have to make sure you're executing it, though. Like, you have to make sure, like, I would have them all set their alarms for, like, between the hours of PDI. So it's 8 to 10 a.m. usually. So some person could set it for, like, 8 a.m., 8:05, 9:45, something like that. And make sure they set it and they label it PDI or personal daily interaction, something like that. So that way they actually remember to call in. Just got to make sure they do it, though. If you say you guys should set an alarm and then you go on to the next topic, like, they're not going to set an alarm, right? Tell them to, like, pull out their phones and do it.
That, and also, like, as they're launching into their first weekend, they all know when their very first demo is. So have them set an alarm for 2 hours after their first demo, knowing that it's probably going to take them 2 hours to complete, and then have the alarm say, reminder to call Shelby. And that way they cannot even use the excuse, oh, I forgot.
Right.
Because you can then say, well, didn't you set the alarm during training like I told you to? And that way you eliminate that excuse altogether. Another thing that's really important to do is, when you have your opening kit, you might notice this from your own current office, is that you have those weekly schedules that have the carbon copy. So you have them fill that out and give you the carbon copy. That way you know the exact time of which they're doing their demos that first weekend. So if you don't hear from Sally Rep all day on Friday, but she has 4 demos lined up, you know something's up. So you have the ability to then call during those times where you know that she should be finishing her demo. And again, you're not bothering them. They are your reps. You are their manager. You are upholding that standard. And that's just a really important mindset to have regarding this. All right, Nathan, what about you? How did you uphold the PDI standard and the importance of it?
Yeah, so for me, I was very, very intense with my expectations. I didn't really put up with a lot of, like, BS, so to speak. I was really intense with that and made sure I was really, really tough. Like, I was pretty laid back through training, but I would get really, really intense on this, and they definitely felt that. And I would start it with basically, this is the do well, don't get fired section of training, and everyone would just sort of be like, oh, like, that's sort of scary. So it catches their attention, and then I would just drill how important PDI is. Like Reanna said, bringing up examples, but also just, like, talking about my personal experience, because when I was a brand new rep, I was awful with PDI. I would never check in the mornings, and I really suffered my fast start because of that. So just talking about how important that is, and then how I was after I started checking in. Also bringing in, like, just, like, drilling home every excuse that someone can give you. So, like, hey, if you call me in the middle of a demo asking to help put in an order, I still require a call after the demo, because I need a call after the demo to make sure that, building the trust and all that stuff that Everett was talking about. So just, like, eliminating every excuse possible, talking about scenarios that somehow they could not, like, they may have thought of that in their head. So that way when they give you that excuse, you covered it in training, and just thinking of everything possible to where there's no reason why they wouldn't.
Yeah. And as they are leaving training, and as you are standing by the door shaking their hand, you can even say, hey, I can't wait to hear from you today on PDI after your first demo. Just another level of reinforcement. And you can say it with a smile, because at this point you have said to them probably 15 times, the importance of PDI. Now, I know some divisions don't use the term PDI. This is the same thing as coaching calls. But, just reinforcing it over and over again to the point where they're like, all right, I get it. And you're like, do you? Do you actually get it? Just want to make sure that you do. I'm here looking out for you. And if that's your personality, Nathan might be able to go more strict. And you might be more on the side of like, I'm just going to reinforce it till I'm blue in the face, and then kind of be like, yeah, I'm just telling you this again because it's that important. And it just goes with whatever your personality is. But take this time now to practice it. And a lot of you, I know this for a fact, when your managers are in Grand Cayman, you're going to be running their training. This is why this particular call is going on now. Because I know a lot of you are going to be running your very first training classes in just a few weeks. Utilize all that we talked about in this training class and see how it sits with you. See how it works with you. And know that sometimes that first one or two go at it might feel a little awkward. It's like your first demo, right? Things are going to feel a little awkward, but you keep working at it. You keep figuring out how to implement certain things, and you'll be a pro by the end of the summer, I promise. All right.
There's one other thing I wanted to add.
Go ahead.
So if you, like, for example, there's a lot of branches in our division that had trouble with, like, people checking in right after training. Like, some people may have that problem their first couple trainings. Just understand that, like, that doesn't mean that defines you as a manager. If the first couple weeks, like, someone doesn't check in properly, like, you can literally turn someone's expectations the next training class. Like, the next training class, you can change an entire group's expectations and change your complete culture around. So if you have a rough week or two, just understand that you can change that starting the following week.
Yeah, and Nathan, I actually wanted to finish out the call before we jump into Q&A. I'm going to have Nathan just share his first training story, just for the sake of time. But you just brought up a really good point that one bad training does not define you as a manager. So can you share your first training experience story with everybody?
Yeah, so my first training, I had my lease signed for May 1st. So that was when my office lease was going to start. But I was running my first training April 26th through 28th, which is the first training you can run. So I got out of finals early, and I literally finished my last final at 10:30 a.m., and my training was at 2. And I live an hour and a half from my territory. I was at college, literally ran into my dorm, threw all of my stuff into the back of my car, into my trunk, and literally just flew down the interstate to my office. I know my office didn't have an office set up yet, but there was a conference room that you can rent out for 3 days. So I did that. And first 2 days went decent, had 3 or 4 people in the second day, and then 3 or 4 in the last day. The problem with the last day was that the office manager that was supposed to unlock the conference room didn't unlock the conference room on the third day, which is, you launch them, you got to get like all this stuff. My sample kits were locked in the closet. My like all the stuff they need to go do demos, rope, leather, all locked in the closet. So I'm freaking out, and I'm calling my managers, and they're not answering because they're running training. So I'm like, what in the world do I do? And we're basically just sitting there waiting for training to start. And I said, you know what, screw it. We're going to do training in the lobby of the office. So what we did was I pulled up, there was a little like rolling sort of podium thing, but it was like not tall. It was like probably to mid-thigh level. And they had like cream, sugar, coffee all over it. So I moved that, put it on the floor, put my laptop on top of it. They were all sitting literally on like a wood bench. And there's just 3 of them. Ran day 3. The office manager finally called me back, came into the office, got all the stuff unlocked. So we got to run like the last 30 minutes, give them their sample kits, all those things. He was super sorry, but we were a little upset about it. But we got them launched. And it wasn't the best training class I ever launched, but it was just a really cool moment just to like power through adversity and just also tell other people, like first training may be rough, but just understand that there's other people that will have those moments like you, and it's just about powering through them.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that story. Yeah, I think it's a great story because it just shows that Nathan was able to think on his feet and didn't let circumstances dictate his end results and figured out a way to launch his class. And listen, guys, you might have a crappy first training seminar. It's very, very possible. But that does not define you for the rest of the summer. There are so many examples of people, you know, first training seminar is the weirdest thing in the entire world, but second one is amazing. So that being said, you know, just focus on continuing to grow and continuing to go through the actions, because the results will come if you dedicate yourself to the actions. That being said, we've got 10 minutes left, so I want to open it up for Q&A. What questions do you have for Nathan, Reanna, and Everett specifically about training dynamics, confidence, getting your reps off to a fast start? Any questions involving those topics or any other topics, feel free to ask right now. And just comment in the group chat if you have a question, I'll go over to you. No questions? Okay, Miranda, jump on in.
So my question is, what did y'all's preparation in the spring look like as far as first weekend PDI goes?
Do you mean like for preparation for PDI or for training?
PDI, like first weekend PDI.
Okay.
Like
Yeah. So what I would do is I would ask what I did personally is I would ask my manager to run a few days of day 3, and then I got asked to get put on like a group. We did like a Google Voice group thing where someone would call the Google Voice number, and Mitch's number and my number would get the notifications. So like if he couldn't answer it, I would answer it. So I got like good practice at running PDI. And at the same time, I got to run day 3 a couple times and get practice the expectations talk about, you know, what we expect in our office and those sorts of things. So that way it gives you good practice all around. That's what I did personally.
Everett, what about you?
For me, I did relatively similar thing to Nathan. I ran a couple day 3s during the spring and got to work with different training groups doing first weekend PDI. I think the best and then we also have a PDI guide in my division. So like just always having that after my training ended on day 3. That way every week I was being intentional about practicing getting better at PDI.
Cool. Reanna?
For me, my manager would have us come, like, set up a time where we can come in on one of the mornings, like a Wednesday morning or something, and from 8 to 10 a.m. we would just PDI all of our active reps. So we'd call them, and we would just ask them like a certain like script that he made up for us and walked us through it, and we could just practice it like once a week between 8 and 10 a.m.
Yeah, cool. Also, on Miranda's point, on March 19th, you'll see it on the cover photo of the branch ImPACT page, but we have a PDI scenario workshop with John Wasserman, who is a top DVM in the Northeast region. He's over $80 million in sales. He's actually my original DVM and Everett's original DVM. And he will be bringing up common scenarios, and he will actually have people role-playing how they would respond to those scenarios. So make sure that you can get on that call. That is one of the best rated calls that we had from last summer, but it's really just a valuable call to get on. What other questions do you guys have regarding training or PDI or setting expectations, gaining respect, anything like that? You have to have some kind of questions. LK, who's that?
Cody from GSP.
Hey, Cody.
It was about respect. How do I make sure I can maintain respect, like being so young, coming straight out of high school?
Good question. Reanna, I want you to answer that.
Oh, you're so mean. Okay.
You were the one that came right out of high school, so, or not right out of high school, but.
Yeah, well, yeah, okay, so, like I said, just tolerate what you tolerate. So people will always, like, there's, you know, like, even, like, top branch managers will show up late as a rep. When we were reps, we showed up late to put things, or, like, you know, we witness other people might have saying, like, negative things about the job in a team meeting, or, like, asking you questions that probably, like, weren't the right timing or weren't appropriate. So just, like establishing, like, I think sometimes you just go with, like, one of the things I want to point out, which is roll with the punches. So always act like branch managers never know the answer to any, like we don't know the answer to a lot of things that are going to happen, but you just have to act like you do, and everyone's going to respect you and look up to you. So like if I didn't know the answer to something, I wouldn't tell all my reps that. I wouldn't like freak out and say like, oh, I left the keys. Like at one time I live an hour away from my office and I literally left the keys at home. And I showed up to my office and couldn't open it. So we had key staff outside my office, like on the grass. And it was awesome. But like, because they saw me like not freak out, and how I responded, it was like, all right, guys, we're just going to do it outside today. And like very like calm and relaxed. They respected me and they always thought like I was the one to go to if they had a problem. It wasn't like the other reps. Like I was a cool manager. Like I knew what to do. And half the time, like I didn't know what I was doing. And that's just going to be like you and everyone else. So just, like people respect you because they like look up to you, and just think about being a role model for them.
And Cody, another thing to remember, and I don't know if you were on the call when I said this before, but by nature of being a branch manager, you will automatically have that respect. You know, I know that we all know that branch managers are college students, and a lot of them are 18, 19, 20-year-olds, but the reps that are coming in your door have no idea.
Can I say one more thing? Sorry.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I thought you were done. Sorry. Just like faking it till you make it too. Like having confidence when you don't have confidence at all. Like eventually they'll believe it and you'll believe it too. And then you just automatically start owning it. And then people will respect you because they sense that confidence.
Yeah. And Cody, one last thing on respect. You look like you're someone who looks older than having just got out of college or just got out of high school. So, I mean, I don't see you in person, but know that, you know, again, by having the suit on, you're going to naturally look older, and you will always be the sharpest person in your office. So if you want high levels of respect, you need to dress and show up and act professionally, and your people will rise to that occasion. But if you act like you're just out of high school, if you dress like you're just out of high school, then you know, the most amount of respect you're going to get is that of a high schooler. But if you act like you are a professional business owner, like you are as a branch manager, you will get the respect as though you are a professional business owner. Make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. All right, Cassidy, what's your question?
So basically it's pretty simple. I've been doing a lot of PDI in my office right now, just like practicing before the summer. And what happens if reps don't answer your phone call? Is it better to leave them a voicemail or kind of just go straight to a text?
Everett?
I think it kind of goes by like what the standards are for you, the standards that you want to set. Like I try to avoid texting reps because anything you say can be misheard in their head as to like the tone of voice you're using or the way you meant that to come across. So I try to usually either leave a voicemail or I just wait and call them back, or I double tap them. I mean, it kind of depends, but I try to avoid overall texting unless I like haven't really gotten in touch with people at all.
Gotcha.
And something on that point, Cassidy, a lot of divisions really like texting. You know, they like the group me culture, all that kind of stuff. There's an amazing feature now on group me, but also on Apple texting where you can actually send a voice memo. So to avoid Everett's point of having your message be misconstrued, you can just send them a quick voice memo of like, hey, left you a voicemail, checking in for PDI. Just a reminder, you need to call me after every one of your demos. Hope it went well. Talk to you soon. And just send that as a text message as well.
Gotcha. Okay.
Cool. All right, Christina, your question.
So I had a question regarding expenses because I know some offices, I came from an office that didn't really have any snacks for me. We always had to bring stuff. But I've also heard of branch managers that had like food for their reps or like bought pizza. And I've also seen offices that sell snacks. So kind of wanted to see like what specifically did you do on expense wise for like food that you're giving to reps, and like what did you do on that note for training?
Yeah. What I did, I never did pizza. The only things I would ever give away during training would be PR prizes. That was the only thing I gave away during training. The only thing I would sometimes buy food, it depended on the training class. So if we were in a really heavy training week, I'd be like, hey guys, you know, bring a fruit or vegetable you want to cut. And then I would bring like a pineapple knowing that like I'm going to have something big to cut. And then with smaller training classes, like if I saw the week was going to be a smaller training set week, I would bring my own food just because I didn't want to count on a group of, you know, like 2 people to bring in all of our food to cut. But if I have like a group of like, I saw like 9, 10, they're probably going to bring in like a couple things, and then I'll bring in the pineapple or watermelon or whatever I want to bring in. So it's just sort of dependent on the group. But I would never buy like pizza, anything like that. Like money's a pretty good motivator, and if you give them a lot of recognition, I think that'll be good.
Christina, when I was a branch, I always bought pizza. So there's totally differing opinions on this. I would just talk to your DVM and find out what works best for you, what is in your budget. You know how much management funds you have. I went into my first summer with a lot, so spending some money on pizza didn't bother me as much as it could for some other people. So just have that conversation with your DVM, but don't feel like you have to buy them stuff or feed them. If you have a microwave and if you have a mini fridge, they can bring whatever kind of food that they have, and you will have a way to accommodate it. So just thinking about that.
Hey, Shelby.
Yeah.
I would just say, Christina, to keep like, at least for the bare minimum, like have some spending money aside just for like cutting food, because you don't want to like ever just like not cut food because you didn't want to like buy the pineapple or something like that. Like make sure they're using it. But outside of that, just I've never heard of eating pizza on training either, so that was pretty cool to me. It's something I might do, but I always save pizza and stuff for like special occasions, so like a SC2 week, or like if everyone did really well that week, I would have like team meeting pizza or stuff like that and promise them that, and everyone would get excited and show up. So just rewarding them at the right times and like whatever you're comfortable with.
Yeah, cool. All right, guys, well, it's 5:01 or 5 o'clock, depending on what clock you're looking at, but thank you to everyone who jumped on today. Thank you to our panelists. Any follow-up questions, please just post in the Branch Impact page, and Nathan, Everett, and Rihanna will answer them, as well as myself. But yeah, have a great night, everybody, and we will see you next. Our next call is on March 12th. So see you then. Bye, everyone.
Bye.